What if a 500-year-old map, drawn on a piece of gazelle skin, held the key to a forgotten chapter of human history? A chart so accurate it defies the technological limits of its time. A document so mysterious it appears to show a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 300 years. And what if that same map depicted that continent, Antarctica, as it looked before it was covered by a mild, thick cap of ice? This is not a work of fiction. This is the story of the Piri Reis map, an artifact that challenges everything we thought we knew about our past and suggests that we are not the first great civilization to map the Earth. Our story begins in Istanbul, 1929. The Grand Topkapi Palace, once the seat of Ottoman power, is being converted into a museum. Deep within its vast library, a team of scholars is cataloging centuries of forgotten relics. A theologian named Gustav Deisman is sorting through a dusty pile of discarded materials when his eyes fall upon a curious piece of gazelle skin. It is a map, beautifully drawn, but clearly a fragment of a larger whole. The map is dated. The year is 1513. The creator is a name well known to history, Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri, better known as Piri Reis. He was not just a cartographer, he was a celebrated admiral of the Ottoman fleet, a corsair, a navigator who had spent his life on the high seas. This was a man who knew the world. But as the scholars examined his work, they were baffled. The map showed the coasts of West Africa and the eastern coast of South America with a precision that was simply impossible. The longitudinal relationship, the distance between the two continents, was rendered with an accuracy that European cartographers of the 16th century, even with the discoveries of Columbus and Vespucci, could not achieve. The problem of longitude would plague sailors for another 250 years until the invention of the marine chronometer. Yet here it was, solved on a map from 1513.
How did Piri Reis accomplish this? He left a clue inscribed in the map's own margins. He wrote that his map was not a work of original discovery, but a synthesis. He had compiled it from over 20 different source charts. Some, he noted, were contemporary, drawn by navigators like Columbus. But others, he claimed, were ancient, dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Some, he implied, were even older. This claim alone was extraordinary. It suggested that Piri Reis had access to knowledge from the great lost libraries of antiquity, perhaps even the legendary Library of Alexandria. It implied that the ancients knew far more about the globe than our history books tell us. The map showed islands in the Atlantic that were unknown in 1513, but have since been discovered. It detailed mountain ranges in South America that were barely explored. But all of this paled in comparison to the enigma at the very bottom of the chart. There, extending eastward from the tip of South America, Piri Reis had drawn a large, detailed landmass, a coastline. This landmass was, according to all known history, an invention. The great southern continent, Terra Australis, was a theoretical concept for centuries. Antarctica itself would not be officially sighted until 1820, 3 centuries after Piri Reis drew this map. But the admiral wasn't just guessing. He had drawn a complex coastline with specific bays, peninsulas, and inlets. For decades, this detail was dismissed as fantasy. Our cartographers flourished to fill the empty void. The map remained a curiosity, an impressive piece of navigation, but its most shocking secret lay dormant, waiting for the technology to understand it.
The secret was finally unlocked in 1949 during the International Geophysical Year. Using new modern seismic sounding and sonar technology, a joint British, Swedish, Norwegian expedition began to map the land beneath the Antarctic ice. For the first time, humanity could see the true shape of the continent. The rock and earth buried under a mile of ice for millennia. When cartographers compared this new high-tech data to the 500-year-old map, the results were chilling. The coastline drawn by Piri Reis was a near-perfect match for the subglacial coast of Queen Maud Land. The bays, the rivers, the capes, they were all there. The implication was staggering. Piri Reis hadn't just guessed the existence of Antarctica. He had, it seemed, copied a map of the continent as it was before it was covered in ice. According to modern geology, the Antarctic ice cap began forming millions of years ago. But the last time Queen Maud Land was completely ice-free was, at a minimum, 6,000 years ago. Other models suggest it could be far, far older. This map, therefore, should not exist. It presented a historical paradox. How could a 16th century admiral possess a map of a prehistoric ice-free Antarctica? The question attracted the attention of a professor of history and science at Keene State College, Professor Charles H. Hapgood. Charles Hapgood was not a conventional historian. He was a man who dared to ask impossible questions. He and his students spent years meticulously studying the map. They corrected its projections, analyzed its sources, and in 1958, they published a revolutionary and terrifying theory. Hapgood proposed that Piri Reis's ancient sources were not from 2,000 years ago, but from 12,000 years ago or more. He theorized the existence of a highly advanced global maritime civilization that flourished during the last ice age, a civilization with the technology to accurately map the entire globe from the poles to the tropics. This civilization, Hapgood argued, was wiped out by a massive cataclysm, the massive flooding at the end of the Ice Age. Their maps, however, survived, passed down through millennia, from culture to culture, until a fragment ended up in the hands of an Ottoman admiral. This idea was, and remains, radical. It sounds like science fiction. It would require rewriting every history book on Earth. But Hapgood's research was so compelling, his mathematical analysis of the map projections so thorough, that it earned the attention of the single greatest scientific mind of the 20th century, Albert Einstein. Hapgood sent his research to Einstein, who was immediately fascinated. Einstein wrote a now famous foreword for Hapgood's book, 1958, Earth's Shifting Crust. He wrote, and I quote, "His idea is original, simple, and, if it continues to prove itself, of great importance to everything that is related to the history of the Earth's surface." Einstein was captivated by Hapgood's geological mechanism, the theory of crustal displacement, which suggested the Earth's entire outer crust could shift in one piece, explaining the rapid freezing of the continent. The support from Einstein gave Hapgood's radical map theory a legitimacy that was impossible to ignore.
But is the case closed? Is the Piri Reis map definitive proof of a lost super-civilization? Mainstream history and science remain unconvinced. The counter-arguments are logical and must be considered. First, is it Antarctica? Skeptics argue that the land mass at the bottom is not the southern continent at all. They propose it is simply the coastline of Patagonia and Argentina, which Piri Reis, running out of space on his gazelle skin, simply bent and distorted to fit. The bays and inlets, they argue, are just stylized drawings of river estuaries. Second, the ice-free claim. Other analysts suggest that even if it is Antarctica, the map doesn't show an ice-free coast. It may simply be a representation of the coast with its ice shelf, or a product of 16th century guesswork, filling in the blanks where no one had ever sailed. And third, the impossible accuracy. While the map's longitude is impressive, some studies have shown it is not perfect, and its accuracy can be explained by sophisticated but conventional Islamic and Greek mathematics and navigational techniques rather than high technology. The ancient sources Piri Reis mentioned could simply have been from the Library of Alexandria, which contained knowledge that was indeed lost to medieval Europe, but not prehistoric. So where does that leave us? We are left with a 500-year-old paradox. On one hand, we have the skeptical view. A talented cartographer made a brilliant but flawed map based on the best knowledge of his day, perhaps exaggerating his sources and filling in the bottom. On the other hand, we have the tantalizing, terrifying possibility that the map is exactly what it appears to be, a genuine artifact, a snapshot of the world as it was over 12,000 years ago, passed down by the survivors of a forgotten global civilization. A civilization that knew our planet better than anyone until the 20th century. The Piri Reis map forces us to confront the limits of our historical knowledge. It serves as a stark reminder that the past is not a closed book. It is a mystery, still unfolding. And perhaps, hidden in the margins of old charts and buried under the ice of our poles, lies a history of humanity we are only just beginning to uncover.